With everything else going on recently, the news that Alec Baldwin's Rust shooting case got dismissed just kinda slipped under the radar. That's right, it was tossed out with prejudice, which means it can't be refiled, on July 12th, 2024. The Trump assassination attempt was one day later, July 13th, and that immediately wiped the slate clean and completely dominated the news cycle. Both the end to Baldwin's criminal case and other internet news happening at the same time, like for example Boogie faking cancer, were quickly put aside for the more serious story and forgotten about. But the Baldwin shooting is something that I said back in 2021 that I would cover once all the facts came out, since that's how I like to do this sort of thing, and I think we're pretty much here now, so let's look into it. On October 21st, 2021, on the set of the Western film Rust, the lead actor, Alec Baldwin, discharged a live round from a revolver being used as a prop in the movie. The bullet traveled through the chest of cinematographer Halyna Hutchins, killing her, and it settled in the shoulder of director Joel Souza, who survived. When this all first went down, internet jokesters flooded Twitter with memes about it, as is expected. Other people debated more seriously over how much responsibility Baldwin actually bore. Was he negligent or careless, or was this just an accident? However, there was absolutely a section of the online right who believed that Alec Baldwin was not simply negligent, but he was a murderer, a cold-blooded killer, and that he had to be brought to justice. Well, let's go over the facts of the case. Rust was Baldwin's passion project. He co-wrote the script with Souza. Production began amidst a possible strike by the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees. Hutchins supported this strike, posting on her Instagram, "Standing in solidarity with our union crew here in New Mexico on Rust." The Rust production faced several problems before shooting. Some crew members claimed that a medic was absent during the construction of sets, that firearm safety protocols were not distributed with call sheets, and that there was a lack of adequate lodging provided by the production, which they were obligated to do. Additionally, 2 of the prop guns had previously unintentionally fired 3 times. One crew member was quoted as saying, "We cited everything from lack of payment for 3 weeks, taking our hotels away despite asking for them in our deals, lack of COVID safety, and on top of that, poor gun safety, poor on-set safety period." All that being said, other crew members have disputed this view of events, which was so commonly repeated on social media shortly after the shooting. A letter signed by 25 crew members and reposted on Baldwin's Instagram read, "It is common to work on unprofessional or hectic productions to gain experience and credits. Many of us have worked on those types of productions. Rust was not one of them. Rust was professional. We do acknowledge that no set is perfect, and like any production, Rust had areas of brilliance and areas that were more challenging. While it is true that a few crew members quit prior to the accident, the vast majority of us remained, never feeling the need to protest or quit. We were enjoying our workplace. Those disgruntled few do not represent the views of all of us." So, what's all this about people quitting? Well, on the morning of the incident, 6 of the unionized crew members staged a walkout. The producer told them to leave and threatened to call the police. An anonymous statement given to the Wrap claimed that crew members took several of the prop guns off set that day, including the gun that would later kill Hutchins, and they decided to spend some time shooting at beer cans using live ammunition. It's common for productions to use real guns as props, since they're authentic and they can be loaded with real blanks. Later that day, the cast and crew were rehearsing a gunfight scene. Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, the on-set armorer, the person whose job it is to ensure that all guns are safe and not loaded with live bullets, retrieved 3 guns meant to be used for the scene and placed them on a cart. A plastic gun that could shoot no bullets, a modified real gun that could no longer shoot any bullets, and the .45 Colt revolver that was used for target practice earlier that day. Reed claimed she checked the guns and then handed them off to the assistant director, David Halls, who then gave them to Baldwin. Halls claimed that the on-set protocol was to open the loading gate of the revolver and ensure that there was no live rounds present, but he admitted to not checking all the chambers himself. He saw 3 rounds in the cylinder and handed the gun off to Baldwin. During rehearsal, Baldwin was supposed to aim the gun directly at the camera. The camera was being repositioned to remove a shadow from the shot, at the same time as Baldwin pulled the gun out while saying, "So I'm guessing I'm gonna take this out, pull it, and go bang." Well, it went bang all right. The bullet missed the moving camera and hit Hutchins and Souza behind it. Baldwin would later claim during an ABC interview with George Stephanopoulos that he never pulled the trigger of the gun, which sounds like it had an accidental discharge.
"Now in this scene, I'm going to cock the gun." And I said, "Do you want to see that?" And she said, "Yes." So I take the gun and I start to cock the gun. I'm not going to pull the trigger. I said, "Do you see that?" She goes, "Well, just cheat it down and tilt it down a little bit like that." And I cock the gun. I go, "Can you see that? Can you see that? Can you see that?" And she says, and then I let go of the hammer of the gun and the gun goes off. I let go of the hammer of the gun and the gun goes off.
At the moment, the decisive
That was the moment the gun went off, yeah. That was the moment the gun went off.
It wasn't in the script for the trigger to be pulled.
Well, the trigger wasn't pulled. I didn't pull the trigger.
So you never pulled the trigger?
No. I would never point a gun at anyone and pull a trigger at them, never. Never. That was the training that I had. You don't point a gun at me and pull the trigger.
However, FBI forensic analysis, released on August of 2022, revealed that the gun had to have been intentionally triggered. Their view was that an accidental discharge from this type of gun was not possible. A second analysis from August of 2023 concurred. At the same time, Halls stated that he never witnessed Baldwin's finger near the trigger throughout the entire event. Halls also claimed that after the shooting, Reed opened the weapon. Halls saw 4 rounds inside of it, one of which looked like the remaining shell of a discharged live round. The script supervisor, Memi Mitchell, called 911.
911, what's the location of your emergency?
We need an ambulance out at Bonanza Creek Ranch right now. We've had 2 people shot on a movie set accidentally.
I'll connect you with medical dispatcher, don't hang up. So was it loaded with a real bullet or what?
I cannot tell you that.
Okay.
We have 2 injuries from a movie gun shot.
Okay, we're getting them out there already. Just stay on the phone with me. Okay?
Hutchins was flown by helicopter to the University of New Mexico Hospital in Albuquerque, where she was pronounced dead, while Souza was transported by ambulance to Christus St. Vincent Medical Center in Santa Fe, where he stayed overnight. Production on Rust was suspended indefinitely, and despite the optimistic statements of some people involved, I don't think that movie's ever getting finished. Hey guys, I discovered during editing that Rust actually did get finished. They resumed shooting in April of 2023 and wrapped in May. It was initially said to be coming out sometime in 2024, however, post-production updates have quietly stopped. The next day, the Santa Fe Sheriff's Office began their investigation. The film's producers hired a legal team to investigate. Halls hired local Albuquerque lawyer Lisa Taraco as his defense. Meanwhile, Reed hired former Assistant U.S. Attorney Jason Bowles as hers. As the accusations began to fly, everyone lawyered up pretty quick. Reed's camp got the jump on setting the initial narrative.
How on earth a live round got into that weapon on set? It was your client who loaded the gun. So how does she explain how a live round got into that gun?
There was a box of dummy rounds, and the box is labeled dummy. Hannah did take from that box, which she, by all accounts, should have been able to rely on. That contains only dummy rounds. She loaded rounds from that box into the handgun, only later to find out there is and she had no idea. She inspected the rounds, that there was a live round. Now, we don't know, however, whether that live round came from that box. We're assuming it did. We're assuming somebody put the live round in that box, which if you think about that, the person who put the live round in the box of dummy rounds had to have the purpose of sabotaging this set. There's no other reason you would do that you would mix that live round in with a dummy round.
That's right, they claimed sabotage. Pointing to the ongoing strike and the walkout, Reed's attorneys ran with the story that some disgruntled activist intentionally mixed live bullets in with blanks in order to cause chaos on the set. The Santa Fe district attorney rebuked this theory, stating that they found no proof of sabotage. Shortly after the ABC interview, Baldwin deleted his Twitter account, and despite his initial claim to be fully cooperating with the investigation, the Santa Fe police had to obtain a warrant to get a hold of his phone, which was eventually handed over on January 14th, 2022. By January of 2023, both Baldwin and Reed were charged with involuntary manslaughter. They both faced up to 18 months in prison if they were found guilty. In March of 2023, Halls pled guilty to negligent use of a deadly weapon and was slapped with 6 months of probation, a $500 fine, and 24 hours of community service. By April of 2023, though, Baldwin's charges were dropped, even though the investigation continued in the background. Reed's charges remained, and added to it were a tampering with evidence charge. The prosecution discovered during the investigation that Reed had hid cocaine from the responding officers on the day of the shooting. She pled not guilty to both charges in August of 2023. Her trial began on February 21st, 2024, and on March 6th, after 2 hours of deliberation, the jury came back with their verdict. Reed was found not guilty for the tampering with evidence charge, but guilty of involuntary manslaughter. On April 15th, she was sentenced to 18 months in prison, the maximum penalty. In January of 2024, 1 year after the initial charges were filed, and 2 years after Baldwin handed over his cell phone, Baldwin was indicted by a grand jury for the same charge as before, involuntary manslaughter. Once again, he pleaded not guilty. His trial began on July 9th, 2024, with the prosecutor claiming that Baldwin was negligent.
Some of the people who were hired to work at this workplace were very inexperienced. And one of those was the armorer, a very young woman named Hannah Gutierrez Reed. You will hear testimony from crew members who worked on the set, who will tell you that to them, Ms. Gutierrez's inexperience was obvious. The evidence will show, ladies and gentlemen, that like in many workplaces, there are people who act in a reckless manner and place other individuals in danger and act without due regard for the safety of others. That, you will hear, was the defendant, Alexander Baldwin, the lead actor on this film.
However, on July 11th, 2 days after things got started, Baldwin's lawyers filed a motion to dismiss the case. They discovered that prosecutors had deliberately hidden evidence from the defense, which, if you didn't know, is a huge no-no. But before we get into why the motion to dismiss was ultimately successful, first we need to discuss what was revealed at Reed's trial a few months earlier, where she got slapped with that full 18-month sentence. I've now watched it's gotta be 10 hours of testimony from various people called as witnesses in that trial, and for the sake of brevity, I'll just sum up everything that came out unless it's really important. Evidence presented during Reed's trial included testimony from co-workers that she was often drunk or high or both on and off the set, and that she was somewhat cavalier and unprofessional about her job as the set armorer. Long before this case ever went to trial, there was speculation on the internet that the only reason she even had the job is because her dad is Thel Reed, a professional sharpshooter who transitioned into Hollywood as a famous shooting coach and on-set armorer. In fact, Rust was Reed's second job as lead armorer.
She spoke to the Voices of the West podcast about working as lead armorer for her first film before Rust.
I was really nervous about it at first, and I almost didn't take the job because I wasn't sure if I was ready, but doing it, it went really smoothly.
On her first job, the film The Old Way, several crew members complained about how she handled firearms, including the lead actor Nick Cage, after she discharged guns without warnings several times. Reed's not the only one with a history of safety problems, though. Remember Halls, the assistant director who took a deal and got probation? Well, when he directed 2 episodes of Into the Dark back in 2019, he apparently disregarded on-set safety protocols by blocking fire escape routes. Also in 2019, while working on Freedom's Path, he was fired from the production after a gun unexpectedly discharged on set, wounding a crew member. While directing the 2022 movie One Way, crew members remarked on Halls' disregard for safety, stating, "That man's a liability. He's gonna fucking kill someone someday." Beyond Reed and Hall, Rust's producers also had safety problems during their previous film, The Tiger Rising. So there's a fair bit of anecdotal evidence that a lot of the people on the Rust set weren't really all that professional. David Hall took the stand, and he confirmed that if the armorer is off the set and there's a gun on the set, responsibility of that gun's safety falls to the assistant director, which would have been him. However, he also claimed that he was busy doing other assistant director duties, and he didn't know that Reed had left the church after handing off the gun to Baldwin.
I went to Miss Gutierrez's cart, which is on, if you're facing the church, it would be on the left-hand side of the church, right just immediately around the corner. I took it to her and I said, I need you to unload that gun. I need to know what it's in it.
And did she unload the gun in front of you?
She did.
And what was taken out of the gun?
I recall seeing 5 dummy rounds, again with the distinctive bright brass ends to them, and 1 shell casing that did not have a projectile on it, and it had a completely distinctive looking end to it.
The on-set medic claimed that she witnessed Reed handle firearms inappropriately multiple times, and also said that there was pretty much 0 chance of her saving Hutchins' life with the medical supplies she had on hand. However, there was also no expectation that there needed to be any medical supplies beyond what's normal, as the scenes of that day didn't involve any stunts or anything like that. And of course, there should have been no real bullets on the set at all.
A lot of times when I would notice our armorer hand the guns over to the actors, sometimes checking them, sometimes not. Generally, once the scene is over, you would remove the weapon. The armorer would remove the weapon from the actor and re-secure it until it is needed again. On Rust, that did not happen a good majority of the time. The actor still remained in possession of the weapon, whether it was in their holster or in their hands.
One of the caterers claimed that she was the one Reed went to hide her cocaine stash.
What did you believe to be in the bag?
I believed it to be cocaine.
And what did you do with it?
I threw it in the hallway trash can before even going downstairs to my hotel room.
And the prop master claimed that Reed was unprofessional and personally believed that she should have been fired.
During the time that you worked with Ms. Gutierrez, did you find her to be easy to work with?
No.
During the time that you worked with Ms. Gutierrez as her supervisor in props, did she call you a c***?
Yes.
Was it around that time that you decided you might want to fire her?
No, it was just overall.
Joel Souza, the director who was shot in the shoulder, testified on behalf of everyone on his team. However, he also stated that the armorer has the final say over anything related to weapons, including veto over the director, producers, the actors, and additionally that he didn't notice Reed performing consistent safety checks.
I remember at one point looking up and her standing there with another person or a few other people, and she looked distraught. And I remember her saying, I'm sorry, Joel, and I remember somebody just screaming at her, and they just ushered her out.
The supplier of guns and ammo to the Rust set, Seth Kenney, stated in court that he never shipped live rounds to the production. During Reed's trial, the court heard a phone call between Kenney and the sheriff's office, where Kenney said, shit, well, she still didn't do her fucking job, when initially told about the shooting back in 2021. This kind of implies that Kenney might have been the source of the bullets, despite his denials. Seth Kenney was good friends with the Reed family, and during his testimony he claimed that the live rounds weren't mixed in with blanks by his company, but instead by Thel Reed. Thel Reed was the armorer for the Western TV show 1883, which began production during the summer of 2021. Kenney claimed that the blanks for Rust were leftovers from the 1883 production, and that when Thel Reed transported them from the 1883 set in Texas to California, and then from California to the Rust set in New Mexico, it was done in a haphazard manner. And according to Kenney, there were many opportunities for live bullets to be mixed in with blanks on those trips.
Do you recall at all, regardless of the conversation, that Sarah Zachary had primed cases on the set of Rust?
If they're on the invoice, and it's a dummy, or excuse me, it's a blank round, and I would include a primed case in a blank round invoice, because again, it's a consumable. I would not be surprised if they got primed case blanks, let's call them.
Well, sir, don't you know that? Don't you know you provided that to Sarah Zachary?
No, it was 2.5 years ago?
However, when the police investigated Kenney's own business, they also found a very haphazard operation, and it wasn't fully clear how the live rounds got mixed into a box of blanks that were ultimately shipped off to Rust. However, despite all of these questions, the court still ultimately chose to hold Reed responsible. Regardless of how the live ammo got to the Rust set, it was Reed's job to be able to tell the difference between a real bullet and a fake, and it was Reed's responsibility to ensure that the gun didn't have any real bullets in it. According to the judge, she failed at this job, and furthermore, because she showed so little remorse, the maximum penalty of 18 months in prison for involuntary manslaughter was justified.
For all the fanfare and pundits and finger-pointing that has been going on for over 2 years, we were able to seat a jury of her peers, who confirmed they could listen to the evidence received in court and determine the facts and apply the law. They found Ms. Gutierrez guilty of involuntary manslaughter. What were some of the poignant facts that came out during the trial? In her police interview, she proudly owned her position as armorer. On October 21st, 2021, chaos ended after the film crew walked off. Ms. Hutchins and others were trying to rig, if you will, how they were going to keep filming. And what was the defendant doing while waiting? She was loading Alec Baldwin's gun. Did she have enough time to load the weapon safely? Plenty. Did she load the weapon? Yes. With dummies and a live round. Did she check what she was loading? No. Why? Well, in her own words, most recently, in her jail calls, she didn't need to be shaking the dummies all the time. Did she check after that? No. And while you've heard her concerns about how she'll never work again as an armorer leading up to the trial, have her concerns changed? No. Here's what she says. This whole thing has been a character attack on her. Just recently, in her allocution, I'm not a monster. They talk about how much of on the phone, she and another are talking about how much of Hannah's life that they could take up, and that this is messing up her modeling career. This is while she's incarcerated, waiting for a sentence. And what does she say about the death of Helena? Hannah is dismissive of the judge talking about someone dying as a result of her actions. Hannah says she's looking at 13 months, which is ridiculous over what happened. Hannah says that people have accidents and people die. It's an unfortunate part of life, but it doesn't mean she should be in jail. I did not hear you take accountability in your allocution. You said you were sorry. You were sorry, but not you were sorry for what you did. You were sorry for and hope they can find peace. It was your attorney that had to tell the court that you were remorseful.
With all that out of the way, let's now talk about what went down at Baldwin's trial, even though it only lasted a few days. When the charges against Alec Baldwin were refiled, a notion began to spread among people who were following the case that this might actually be malicious on behalf of the prosecution. They already had solid evidence against Reed for her own negligence, and the second person who was liable for gun safety, the assistant director, had already pled down. It began to feel like somebody really wanted to pin something on Baldwin. Maybe they genuinely believed he was guilty. Maybe they wanted to claim the scalp of a celebrity, who knows. But as the trial began, it became obvious that something was off. Though the FBI did claim, through their own analysis, that the gun could not have gone off without pulling the trigger, the Santa Fe prosecutor's office requested that the FBI perform a specific type of high-stress test in an attempt to prove that result more definitively. The FBI warned them that doing the test had a high likelihood of damaging the gun beyond repair, making it impossible to test further, and the prosecutor's office said fine, do it anyway. As expected, the gun broke, and no further testing could be done. During the clips that I've played throughout this video, you've likely noticed two prosecutors. A woman with short blonde hair, that's Carrie Morrissey, and a woman with long brown hair, that's Erlinda Ocampo Johnson. Johnson actually left the case mid-trial. She believed that although there was evidence against Baldwin for involuntary manslaughter, her colleagues in the police department and prosecutor's office were ignoring her concerns over how some parts of the case were being treated. She thought that their behavior wasn't quite right, and that Baldwin's rights may have been violated, but her concerns fell on deaf ears, so she walked out.
Did you believe that Alec Baldwin should be found guilty?
I did. I believed the evidence that we had. I had no idea that there was this other evidence that had not been turned over. That there were some actions that were done during the filming, and there was some recklessness. I did based on the evidence that was available. I know what you're required to do. And when this came to light, I think that the best decision would have been for the state to dismiss the case. That's why I resigned.
Really?
Because I believed that that case should have been dismissed, and I advocated for that over the lunch hour, and it wasn't. And so when we came back after the lunch hour, I asked to withdraw.
One of the reasons she might have walked was due to how Troy Tesk's evidence was treated. Troy Tesk is a retired police officer and a friend to both Seth Kenney and the Reed family. He claimed to have a set of bullets manufactured by Seth Kenney's company. Tesk offered these bullets to prosecutor Carrie Morrissey multiple times, who initially claimed to be interested, but never followed up with him. Eventually, he brought the bullets to the police station himself, after Reed was found guilty, handing them over to crime scene technician Marissa Popple. However, Popple was told by her supervisor, Lieutenant Brian Brandel, not to inventory the bullets into the rust case. At his instruction, she logged it as documented information under a different case number so that it would never be disclosed to the defense. This is known as a Brady violation from the 1963 case Brady v. Maryland, where the Supreme Court ruled that suppression of evidence favorable to the defense by the prosecution is a violation of due process rights. As a result, prosecutions are legally required to perform Brady disclosures to the defense. During the defense's cross-examination of Popple, in those few short days where Baldwin's trial was actually active, Popple admitted some very interesting stuff on the stand. Kenney assisted the police when asked, but Baldwin's defense team alleged that his relationship with the police became too close. Popple admitted that although it took them 1 day to get a warrant to search the set, it took them 1 week to get a warrant to search Kenney's prop truck. Popple also admitted that although they found live ammo all over the set, they didn't find a single bullet in Kenney's prop truck, which had been delivering the ammo to the set. Popple also admitted that they still have Tesk's bullets, and that they could be brought before the court right away to show that they do not match Kenney's stock. Well, the judge ordered the Tesk bullets brought in, regardless of how they were filed in the computer system. And then, right there in the courtroom, the judge dramatically put a set of gloves on and confirmed for herself that the casing of the bullet that killed Hutchins did indeed match Kenney's stock.
This is unusual, but if you all don't mind, and if there's any objection, I'm going to have her step down and when I ask her a question about which is which, she will put it out. Please pull out the 3 Starline Brass 45 Colt. What color? You need to record it? I have my report.
I'm just going to pass the witness up, because we're not fully set up, the copy of the spent shell casing that was recovered on the scene in Ruff. And you would agree with me, right, that it's the same as the bottom of the bullets that you just provided to the court?
Yes, it's Starline Brass 45 Colt with a silver primer.
So when I asked you yesterday, didn't he turn in ammunition that matched the ammunition that killed Ms. Hutchins? It's true that he did, correct?
And I did not recall at that time.
I understand that that's your position, but that's what in fact happened. Would you agree?
I would not use the word match without there being an additional analysis.
Well, who got to decide whether there would be additional analysis?
That was not myself.
It wasn't the defense, though, right? We didn't know about it.
I don't know what you were aware of.
Okay. Well, you know that we came to have an evidence viewing where we asked to see every single round that could be related to the Rust set, and this was hidden from us. You do know that.
This was not hidden.
This was not hidden?
This was under a case number. It was documented. I was instructed to document it under this case number.
What this all means is, back in Hannah Reid's trial, Seth Kinney claimed the live rounds may have been mixed in with blanks by Thel Reid during their transportation between multiple different locations. However, the set of bullets from Tesk, also procured from Kinney's company, had real bullets mixed in there too, which were a match with the bullet that was shot on the set of Rust. What this proves, insofar as the Baldwin trial is concerned, is that the ammo delivered to the set of Rust by Kenny likely already had live rounds improperly mixed in with blanks, and that the police dragging their heels on getting search warrants for Kenny's prop truck may have given him the time to clean up any evidence implicating his own negligence. Popple's testimony was really a spectacle. The crime scene technician started out confident and assertive, but as it became clear that the defense knew about the hidden bullets, she began to panic. She stumbled over her words. She contradicted herself. She got angry. It was a real-ass Phoenix Wright moment, which, from what I understand, isn't that common in actual trials. What also isn't that common, at least from my layman's perspective, is when the prosecutor herself turns into a witness. Carrie Morrissey called herself to the stand to testify about the nature of these hidden Tesk bullets. After getting cross-examined by Baldwin's defense team, it became pretty clear that, as information came out during Reid's trial, support for pursuing charges against Baldwin was declining in her office, and it was probably Morrissey herself who wanted to keep the crusade going. So, the judge ended up tossing the case, and blasted both the Santa Fe Sheriff's Office and the prosecutor's office for their abysmal conduct during the investigation, which, in her words, bordered on bad faith.
The state is highly culpable for its failure to provide this discovery to the defendant. The state unilaterally withheld a supplemental report. Santa Fe County Sheriff's Officer made the decision, and apparently also with the prosecutor, as pursuant to Hancock's testimony, that the evidence was of no evidentiary value and failed to connect the evidence to the instant case. The case agent, as well as pursuant to Hancock's testimony, Ms. Morrissey, was aware of the new evidence and yet did not make an effort to disclose it to defense. The state's willful withholding of this information was intentional and deliberate. If this conduct does not rise to the level of bad faith, it certainly comes so near to bad faith as to show signs of scorching.
Afterwards, some private remarks from Morrissey came out that showed she probably did actually have it out for Baldwin. Despite this, as of me recording this video, she has not been punished for this behavior. The Santa Fe DA doubled down on her support for Morrissey in the wake of the case. As to how the defense learned the Tesk bullets existed in the first place, we currently don't know. Maybe Tesk approached Baldwin's team himself. Maybe Thel Reid spoke to them. Maybe somebody at the sheriff's office who knew did the right thing and tipped off Baldwin. But there's currently no confirmation for any of this. Meanwhile, Reid, currently in the middle of her 18-month sentence, is also appealing her case based on this undisclosed evidence. But she faces a tougher sell. The bullets were only hidden by Popple under the orders of Brandel after Reid was convicted. While Reid was on trial herself, the Tesk bullets were uncollected evidence, not suppressed evidence. Additionally, proving that the bullets came from Kenny instead of a different source doesn't change the fact that it's the armorer's responsibility to ensure that a gun on set doesn't have a live round in it. And Reid failed in that role, regardless of where the live round was sourced from in the first place. I mentioned at the beginning of the video that a section of the online right believes that Alec Baldwin is a murderer. Their view of this event hinges on the fact that Baldwin has a possible motive for wanting Hutchins dead. her Instagram support of the strike that was affecting the Rust production schedule, and that the sourcing of the bullets and the armor's responsibility and all this other stuff is simply there to obfuscate the real truth that Baldwin used the chaos to kill Hutchins. While this is possible, I guess, I think this interpretation is highly unlikely, and it was pushed mainly by charlatans online because, let's be real, Baldwin is a leftoid Hollywood celebrity who made fun of Trump back in 2017, and it would be real epic if one of these progressive rich fucks finally got their comeuppance. And you know what? If that's how it played out, I would have laughed at it too, but the evidence just doesn't currently support that conclusion. I guess the final question that remains is Baldwin at fault? I mean, not legally, the case is tossed, but let's say morally. Is it the actor's responsibility to clear a prop gun, or is it the armorer's? I understand the 4 basics of gun safety. Treat all guns as if they're loaded, don't point at something you don't want to kill, keep your finger off the trigger, and be sure of what's behind your target. These apply in almost every situation, but I think there's a decent case to be made for a different set of rules to apply during shooting a movie or a TV show.
What I was taught by someone years ago was, as I said, if I took a gun, and I popped a clip out of a gun, or I manipulated the chamber of a gun, they would take the gun away from me and redo it. The prop person said, don't do that, when I was young. And they'd say, one thing you would need to understand is we don't want the actor to be the last line of defense against a catastrophic breach of safety with the gun. My job, they told me, man or woman, my job is to make sure the gun is safe, and then I hand you the gun and I declare the gun safe. The crew's not relying on you to say that it's safe. They're relying on me to say that it's safe. When that person who is charged with that job handed me the weapon, I trusted them, and I never had a problem.
And this was from the beginning of your career?
From day one. There's one person that's supposed to make sure that what is in the gun is right and that what's wrong is not in the gun. One person has that responsibility to maintain the gun.
Like, imagine you've hired an actor with no gun experience whatsoever to play a role that involves shooting of a gun. This guy's not going to know anything about anything. That's why the responsibility of gun safety on a set is offloaded from the actor to a professional armorer, who is the expert and who does know what's going on. For those of you people who are saying, no, Dev, you're wrong, the 4 basics of gun safety always apply, no matter what, even on a movie set. Well, if that were true, then how would you ever get a shot where an actor pulls the trigger? Since one of the rules is keep your finger off the trigger unless you intend to shoot something, and the actor never intends to shoot something. Or how would you ever get a shot where the gun is pointed directly at a camera? Like right now, in this shot, the gun is being pointed at something that could be destroyed, the camera, or killed, the crew. That's another violation. And yet these are pretty normal shots in movies and TV shows. Do you really believe that because acting necessitates violating the 4 basics of gun safety, that acting is always inherently unsafe and cannot be made safe, and every actor who does something like this is negligent? It seems to me that it's more likely that there's a different standard for on-set guns than off-set, and that it's entirely appropriate to blame the armorer for not making sure there was no live rounds in the gun that Baldwin was holding. Even if Baldwin pulled the trigger, and should not have done so, he was probably under a reasonable belief that the armorer did her job correctly, and the gun had no live rounds in it. It sure as shit isn't Baldwin's fault that live ammo was all over the set and mixed up with blanks, nor is it his fault that people went and shot up beer cans for fun on lunch break. Anyway, regardless of how you feel about this story, the funniest bit of all has to have been the Alec Baldwin Starbucks confrontation by crackhead Barney. I'll just let you watch this for yourself.
Alec, can you please say Free Palestine one time? Why did you kill that lady? You killed that lady and got no jail time? No jail time, Alec? No jail time, Alec. You're putting innocent people in jail, Alec Baldwin. I'm so sorry. Free Palestine, Alec, just one time, and I'll leave you alone. I'll leave you alone, I swear. Just say Free Palestine one time. One time. One time.
Call the police.
One time, Alec. You know he's a criminal. You know he's a fucking criminal. Come on, Alec, just say Free Palestine one time. One time, just one time, please. And I'll leave you alone. Free Palestine. Fuck Israel, fuck Zionism. Please say it. One time.
Could you do me one quick favor?
Yeah, so this is crackhead Barney. Yes, that's a real person. She's a left-wing performance artist who does ambush interviews trying to go viral online. Her political beliefs are quite progressive, but they do ultimately take a back seat to being as outrageous as possible for clicks. After Baldwin knocked the phone out of her hands, she went on Piers Morgan claiming to be mortally wounded.
I wore my diaper today for you, Piers. Do you like it?
Do you want to sit down?
Do you see the damage that Alec did to me? Do you see the damage? Look at my arm.
No, you weren't mean by Alec Baldwin on Monday, were you?
I was maimed.
No, you weren't.
My hand is broken. My neck is broken.
No, it's not.
My legs. Look at my legs. Don't do this to me, Piers. It's too early in the morning, Piers. This is too early.
Your wig's come off.
Pierce, can you say free Palestine for me?
If you don't shut up, I can't give you the answer.
Pierce Morgan is beating me up on international TV!
You know what? I'm convinced. Alec Baldwin is a hero for slapping this bitch.